All right, hey everybody, this is Matt Waldman with the RSP Film Room, and today's special guest is definitely a special guest, someone who is just a really great friend and someone that you see, if you watch my stuff, then you really are watching his stuff most weeks, which is Football Guys, ESPN, Cecil Lammey. Welcome, Cecil.
Matt Waldman, I say good morning to you. It's 40 degrees this morning in Colorado, so I'm bundled up.
Awesome, awesome. I'm a little jealous. It's only about 60 here, but I'm wearing the hat in spirit today, mainly because I think either my hair's falling out or I'm getting old or I'm vain. I don't think I'm vain though, because looking at what I got going on here, vanity is like skipped my generation in my gene pool. Um, today, without any further ado about beauty tips or things like that, we're going to watch film of probably one of the best prospects in this draft. Someone who made the news, unfortunately, last week out of Athens, Georgia, my old hometown. Todd Gurley, the running back out of University of Georgia, who has been suspended indefinitely due to a variety of things that I'm sure that the NCAA and the legal studies department at my day job is probably having to enjoying trying to sort out from their academic perspective. So Cecil, tell us a little bit about, Cecil is a huge fan of the running back position, and
Yes.
I can't think of another person that I would love watching tape with a running back than Mr. Lammey here. So Cecil, tell me about what you've seen of Gurley, what you think of him right now, and what you hope to get a chance to watch as we're study some tape from today.
Well, I will say this. The suspension and the NCAA ruling, all that, just bunk for this guy. It's not going to impact his draft stock. Charging for autographs, kid needs money, so we'll save that debate for another show. But in terms of on the field, and Georgia backs especially, we know that Georgia backs, they find a special type of back, that they're looking for a certain type of back. And reliving back to my days of watching Herschel Walker growing up as a little kid and seeing the size, the speed, the ability to dominate a game, Georgia backs, whether it was Garrison Hurst or Terrell Davis, we didn't see much of him at Georgia, Robert Edwards, etc. Tons of Georgia backs have come through that have really been worth your time as a football fan. And I'll say this much about Todd Gurley: he's special. He's one of these special runners where in today's NFL we see committee guys, we see specialists, we see, okay, he's not the biggest guy, you don't want him working between the tackles, he's not the fastest guy, make sure he only works between the tackles. So we're seeing the position really morph into specialized position, and that's why we see running back by committee in the NFL. Gurley is one of those backs that has everything that you want in a runner, and I know the comparison that I would use has now some negative connotations, but in an Adrian Peterson-like way, in a once in a 10-year type way, that's what we see with Gurley. He's incredibly special, a blend of power and speed and that ability to dominate. So I can't wait until he gets to the pros. So, suspension, whatever. I think this kid's a first-round pick, and I know that's saying a lot now in today's NFL when we haven't had a first-round running back in 2 years, but that's exactly what Gurley is. He does everything well, and he does everything that you want from a true feature back. In today's NFL, that's very rare.
Yeah, and I think that's a great assessment of really why this guy is going to be a first round pick, and the landscape of the running back position overall in the NFL and the NFL draft. So without further ado, what we're going to do is watch some tape. The way that we do this, if you haven't seen the RSP Film Room before, it's a pretty stripped down show. We're going to have lots of dead air. We're going to do a lot of things in broadcasting that people don't particularly like, but this show is for a select group of folks who are just completely tape heads and who want to get a chance to watch something with a couple other people who do spend a lot of time doing it. So we're going to roll the tape. We're going to watch a lot of stuff probably at half speed because the way Google Hangouts is, it gets a little jumpy at this stage, and it's a great piece of technology. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for them, but we slow it down a little bit so that we can watch. And if Cecil's like, hey, stop this and rewind it, I want to talk about this section, or I say, hey, this is is something I want to look at again, we'll do that. So we may spend a half hour on a 9 minute piece of film, or an hour on a 9 minute piece of film that's offered here by Draft Breakdown. Again, this site saves plenty of draft analysts bacon every year. They're fantastic. I recommend it if you're looking for highlights to go check them out first and foremost. They do a great job of splicing together the tape in a way that you get to see not just every play with the ball, but every relevant play when they don't get the ball. And so it's a really great collective effort from this team, and so I can't recommend them enough. So we're going to start this We're going to start this, and I'm going to give Cecil a choice here. We've got 3 games from 2014 that we can choose from as a starting point. One of them is against Tennessee. We also have one against South Carolina, and we have another against Clemson. Cecil, which one would you like to start with?
Well, let's start with South Carolina. At the beginning of the college football season, everyone's like, "Who's your Big Four?" Right?
Right.
And I think I was talking to Brock Hewitt or Brian Grease. I was like, "South Carolina won," and this before the season started. I was like, "1,000% South Carolina going to be in." Maybe not now, but let's watch South Carolina and Georgia in this one.
That sounds good. And can you see the screen at this stage?
I can see the screen at this stage.
All right, awesome. Then we are linked in, and we will get it going. To start, what I'm going to do is we're going to keep the sound off, so we can just talk, and I will keep it playing real time for the moment. And if there's something that you want to stop and highlight and go back, we'll play it at halftime at that stage, if that works for you. And if it's too jumpy, then we'll just keep it on halftime for the full ting. And you know what? This is Clemson. Let's go ahead and where are you, South Carolina? There we go.
Okay, here we go.
There
South
we go.
Carolina.
South Carolina. Clemson, South Carolina, same state. All right, there we go. Within the general area. All right. I think the
Pass
first.
pro, always good for a rookie running back. Got to protect your quarterback.
Absolutely, and even looking at this, let's see. You also get against a defensive lineman, which is a really nice thing to be able to see one-on-one stand up. I mean, that's a stand up against a defensive tackle.
That buys him enough time. And usually it's backs on backers, or you see a blitzing corner. That was a great play against a huge man, so enough to buy his quarterback some time for the big throw.
And this right here should tell you everything about what you just said, Cecil, in the intro, which is he's an every down back. This is another sign. You don't see a lot of backs play stand up against a 300-pound man and set it up in a way where he's forcing the man to just run right through him, and he's going to take it.
Look at his stance before he initially makes contact, where you froze it there, Matt. He's the aggressor. Now, he's going to get run over. Of course, it's just physics, okay? But look at his stance right now. It's forward. He's up to push in his weight into the defensive lineman. We know he's going to lose, and he does lose, but it's that aggressive stance. You'd see a lot of backs try to come up and patty cake. Just come up and stand flat-footed. Look at his feet. Look how he's, lunging into the defensive lineman. So, again, a lot of pass protection isn't just technique. It's want to. You're seeing want to from Gurley on this play.
And hell, most backs, I think, that are of the size that we see right now, they wouldn't be playing patty cake. They'd be aiming for this little 5-hole right between the knees of this guy to dive through, even if they would deny it. But the fact that he only gets pushed back a few steps and affords room in the pocket to even make this throw is a big deal.
That's huge. And when you try that in the NFL, defensive linemen are just going to pancake you and get around you. They're too athletic, they're too agile, and they're too strong.
Yeah.
No, I love that. Keeping the feet moving after contact. Balance is a big deal for me with a pro back. And you see the initial contact, a lot of backs go down right there. A lot of backs would go down even on that second move. So he's twisting, he's turning, he's falling forward. These are all, again, positives for Todd Gurley and his pro prospects because he's fighting and eking out for every yard, not just going down at first initial contact. I like seeing that. That's, you see that a lot in DeMarco Murray these days in the way that he's running for Dallas.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to project the context of a situation because on this particular play, this is a huge hole. I mean, you look at this, and this is he has kind of a two-way go in on either side that's about the size of a Volkswagen van. So he is someone that in this particular situation, you're going to see a lot smaller creases in the NFL more often than you do in the SEC. But at the same time, what Cecil makes in terms of his points here still have merit because even in a tight crease, and you have this type of grabbing and wrapping, you need to be able to fight and get forward. And so even if it's a huge hole, it doesn't matter in this case. We're not talking about vision.
I like that. I love the footwork to leap over the outstretched legs. You got to avoid trash at the line of scrimmage. Also, on that previous play, we saw initially he got stood up after contact and he went back to get low. His first instinct was to get back and get low again. And I like to see that from a runner as well because low man wins in football.
Yeah, and and when you talk about getting low like that, I mean, your pads are over the knees and you're driving with your legs, and that's how you're going to get that acceleration and get that power.
Well, how many guys do we see get stood up and then they just stay up?
Yeah.
His first instinct is to get back and to get low immediately, and I love seeing that.
And one thing that's really nice about this particular play,
oh, we got to watch this play.
yeah, is with big backs, I think you would agree with me here. With big backs, when they're running east-west from sideline to sideline, that's usually what defenders want because it's easier to tackle a guy who's not heading downhill. So here he is getting wrapped in the backfield, and it's not the best angle that the defender's able to take and get a great shot, but the fact that he's not able to wrap up and make the play, also a nice sign.
Well, and here's the thing. We got to rewind that to show that angle. Terrell Davis, who has become a good friend of mine, he always said if we watch this play with Gurley, as soon as he gets the football, Terrell Davis and I have a great argument, which is more important for a running back, vision or footwork. And TD said, because I always say how running backs like a Marshall Faulk would set up the linebackers when he got the handoff. Watch the handoff, and let's freeze it if we can. Okay, he gets the handoff. Here's what Terrell Davis told me, and I believe it's true. I always made the assumption, hey, Marshall Faulk gets a handoff. He's looking at the linebacker. No, he's not. He's looking at the safety. He's looking at the third level. And what TD said is he said, I knew that when I got the ball, I didn't even think of the defensive lineman, and I was watching the third level. I was watching how I could set up that guy. Football is a game of angles, and you see Gurley, a lot of big backs would say, okay, guys here, I'm just going to try to run him over. He knew that he could go laterally, do that little hip toss. That's almost a kung fu move right there, and then get to that second and third level. And right there, he's staring at the safety. That's the guy he was focused on the entire time. So as far as sloughing off the defensive lineman or the blitzer there, that's natural. That's instinct. It's nothing for him to be able to do that. A lot of backs, that would melt them down on that play. They get someone right in their face as soon as they get the handoff. How many backs would just melt down right there and
right.
then not know what to do? He does it. He does the hip toss, and he does it all instinctively and smoothly so that it's one motion. And then he's not thinking linebacker. She's thinking where's that safety? Is right there in that shot you've got. He's thinking where's the safety because he's getting to the second and third level.
Yeah, and I think that's very important to highlight that this is not a instinctive thing for every back. In fact, it's for
very rare.
For few backs because most backs are addressing just the line of scrimmage at this point. Most backs are going, okay, look at this. We've got, where's the helmets located of these players in the blocking scheme, and how do I get through? And then maybe if I have a quick minute, I can see what the linebacker's up to over here. But really at this stage, I mean, you see him, he's also following his man. You see that he's following his lead block. And once he's shaken off this man, he sees that hole and he's heading down. He's going to get downhill.
Yep, and he's going to get there in a hurry. I always talk about processors, usually with quarterbacks. Like, you got to have a fast processor, but you also have to as a running back. People think running back's a dumb position because it's so easy to translate from college to the pros. No, it's beautiful. It's an art form to be a runner. Darius Walker always told me it was like scatting. That's why when he watches film, Darius Walker will scat. And I asked him one time, I was like, why are you scatting? And he's like, because that's what you do. And it's improvisation. It's being a jazz musician. That's why the running back position is so beautiful. It's not so simple, oh, just get the ball and run to daylight. No, they're watching helmets. They're watching for shoulders. And they're watching for colors to flash. And it's an art form when you get to see someone like a Terrell Davis, a Marshall Faulk, a Todd Gurley. And, yeah, I'm throwing him in the conversation with those two because that's how truly special I believe he is.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about that because you look at the line here and the blocking scheme in a lot of ways. If you take that jazz metaphor, you've got basically the harmony going on here. This is the structure of the play and how he's going to operate. What he does is the melody over the structure of this play. So he's looking, he's basically part of melody is also rhythm, and part of it's also, note choices, things like that. And so with running backs, the equivalent of that is his stride length, his stride pacing. How does he handle interaction with what's going on, like as if a jazz musician or any musician works with a rhythm section, whether it's the drummer or the piano player, that kind of stuff. So you're looking at a lot of different elements here being put together, and no running back really is the same. That's one of the great things about analyzing this position, is that there is such a wide, diverse group of players in terms of physical skills and conceptual understanding and style of the game that can succeed. Now, they may not all, now if you're looking at one particular template for what makes a great running back, then you're not going to be as inclusive. But if you're judging just solely on that standard, but if you're judging on the standard of what can work in the NFL, the possibilities are it's a really wide range of possibilities here.
Watch if they do motion. If they don't fit, they're so focused on Gurley. The last time they did motion, they didn't even move the defense. So that tells you how truly focused South Carolina is on Gurley and Gurley alone.
It's a great point.
Motion doesn't really move them there. Still expecting the run.
Now, how much do you think Gurley is dependent on a fullback?
Well, we've seen him run out of the shotgun formation. We've seen him run out of the fullback. I like the fact that he does follow that lead man. I don't think it's a necessity necessarily with him, because he's done it out of single back sets. He's done it out of the shotgun, and he's done it with the fullback in front of him. So whereas other backs, usually the backs that are dependent on a fullback are the ones that don't have as great a vision because they just only follow their fullback. With Gurley, I don't see that. And it's one of the reasons why we talk about fullback. Why did Barry Sanders fail with a fullback in front of him? And by fail, I mean it was like only 1,200 yards or whatever. See, that's an NFL run. That's an NFL stud run. We gotta watch that one from the beginning.
Sure. We'll see if we can get an end zone view too.
Barry Sanders struggled with a fullback because he was an improvisator and he had great vision and he didn't need to follow that lead back. And watch Gurley, he makes a decision. A lot of backs would just follow that big guy in front of him.
And again, this is a nice read of the backside of the blocks, because really when you look at where the fullback and where this double team is supposed to be is probably the primary hole.
Yes.
So you're looking at that primary hole, which is following the fullback through this.
He doesn't do that.
Not at all.
Do that.
because what he sees, this helmet inside, the penetration
Mhm.
across the face of the guard. You see the tackle sealing the outside here.
He also sees 52. See, running backs looks for shoulders and helmets.
Yep,
And look where
yep,
52 shoulder is. That read is telling him go to the backside hole.
yep, absolutely.
And he's doing this in a microsecond. That's where the processor comes in.
Yep,
See, if he follows a fullback, 52 gets him.
right. And I will say, I watched an earlier tape of Melvin Gordon against LSU where he has a much smaller crease to do this type of work in, and I would call it a more impressive display of vision, but you work with what you got here. So you're not going to sit here and go, well, because Melvin Gordon had a smaller crease, means that he's got better vision than Todd Gurley going through a bigger crease. But it's a way of being able to say, this is a fairly large crease, but everything he's doing is conceptually correct here. So you don't make excuses about saying, well, he ran through big creases at Georgia, because he does run through some pretty big creases at Georgia. But you're also seeing that once he gets in the open field, a big man like that who can motor, that's also rare.
Yeah, it's a safety and a cornerback nightmare. By the way, the the film against LSU and Melvin Gordon, that had to be in the first half because Lord knows they didn't use him enough in the second half. Now, he must have seen something there because he had two guys pulling out to his left, and you would assume that he bounces that outside off tackle, and he doesn't. He cuts it back inside. See 54 and 61. You would think follow those guys and stay on the left side of 54 64, whatever it is. And he doesn't. He cuts it back inside.
And I think the reason being, I would hazard to guess here, is watch right here. This man that I'm circling here with my cursor, he's got inside position on this, or outside position on this fullback, and the position of his second puller is well outside of this angle.
Spacing was off there for sure.
Yeah. So at this stage, he knew he had to cut back, and you could see that the way that this defender reacts to that cutback, he had the angle on Gurley there.
Yep.
And again, this is a big kid, so it's easy for a guy to look like he's running fairly upright. I mean, he's running upright here. You would call that an upright run, but again, the point to me is how do you handle contact, and how flexible are your hips if you're a big back? Because if you're flexible with your hips and your knees and you're able to bend the way that he bends here, it also helps you bend and finish when it's time to get low.
And look at him when contact is coming in, that's when he gets low. And for me, a lot of people talk about big backs. Oh, he's so upright. He's upright when nobody's around him.
Right.
How does he drop his pads upon contact? And if there are guys that are just upright the whole time,
Yep.
and it leads to fumbling issues and injury issues. But if you get low, and as we said earlier, his first instinct is to get low. As soon as he gets stood up after a hit, he'll get back and get low because he knows naturally that's how you win. So I like seeing that where you froze it right there.
Yeah, and when you get low, because a guy like Darren McFadden didn't always know when to get low, and
No.
Chris Brown was an example sometimes of a guy who didn't know. I always kind of
Hardly ever.
I always called Chris Brown like he was trying to be a hammer to a nail. And if you're not getting low when you see the contact heading towards you, or in anticipation of the contact heading downhill at you, you're too late. Because if you bring the pads down like you're hammering a nail, you're going to get popped backwards. You have to be low before that contact is there.
Yes.
Unless you're, 250 pounds, or you're Bo Jackson with the strength of a 320-pound guy, then you could
Again, here at a shotgun, a 3rd and 6. We've got him mixing around the defensive line, but
Nice catch right there.
Yeah,
You know,
with
that's
contact coming.
yep, contact coming, and he's fluid. I mean, it's not a great play as, in terms of the outcome, but the willingness to do this, to lay yourself out, that's a nice thing that you want to see about the behavior of the player. The
Hmm.
technique to catch the ball high like that, also good. The flexibility to make this turn and make that catch, also a very nice sign.
Well, and look at that. He's got two defenders already over him. It was a 3rd and 6. The defensive line was doing whatever they were before the snap. Like, he was essentially getting bracket coverage from the running back position, which is
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
Also, look at how he turned quickly. These are little nuances that a lot of people will miss that we need to highlight. He immediately, I call it present yourself. You have to have the presentation. You always hear me rant that guys don't square to the quarterback. They don't give him the biggest possible target. He does that immediately. A lot of guys would turn so their shoulders were at an angle where it didn't make a big target. They couldn't make that twisting play. But because he presents himself and he squares his shoulder in the line of scrimmage, he's able to go up and get that football, then hold on to it, take the hit. I mean, that's a good play. It doesn't get you a first, doesn't get you close, but that's a great play from Gurley.
And I would say that this is an even nicer adjustment, because when you look at this play, you see him coming out of here on his break, and he's turning to look back at the quarterback. I would hazard a guess that when the play begins, if you're running a flat route, you're expecting the ball probably ahead of you, depending on the location of the defender. The quarterback has to read that location of the defender and choose what shoulder is going to be thrown at. And in this case, he sees the man over top at the front shoulder, so he targets the back shoulder, and Gurley makes a nice adjustment there so that he doesn't take the brunt of the hit in a way that could have even been worse on this play and could have actually caused him not even catching the football. Gives him time to turn around and shield the man too. So a lot of little things going on here is what you mentioned, Cecil, and then as well as just the rapport between the quarterback and the receiver, something we talked about last night in the Audible with Bortles and Johnson. You have to have that one-on-one rapport.
Yeah. So 8 in the box.
And you're seeing a 2 or 3 yard gain out of a play that could have been stopped for a minor loss.
Yeah, with 8 in the box and his fullback got blown up.
Yep.
54 and his fullback both got blown up. So he gets 2 yards out of essentially nothing,
And
out of
that's
8 in the box.
and that's due to pad level and strength. I
Hmm.
mean, Clinton Portis would get yards like this against some good defenses in college with a low pad level. So while he may not do it against a 300-pound lineman, um, the effect of leverage is a very important thing to note about a running back.
Look at how focused they are on Gurley.
Yeah,
Another 8 in the box, by the way.
yeah,
And that's another thing that you'll be able to take advantage of. I mean, Tony Romo sets up play action this year so well because of DeMarco Murray.
yep. The fact that the
Look at all
Vikings,
those hats. Look at
yeah,
that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players outside the hash.
Yep.
You know,
Wow.
so it's basically at this point, you're looking at basically a 3-on-3 situation. Easy first down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Adrian Peterson, you look at the Vikings, and before Brett Favre was there, and then post Brett Favre, you're basically looking at a team that has either been in the playoffs or threatened to be in the playoffs because of what Peterson could do. Now tell me what you see about Gurley that you think reminds you of Peterson, and what are things about him that you think are different from either what you've seen thus far?
The things that remind me of Peterson is the fact that he is so large, he's big, and he's swift. People will mistake swift to mean like, well, he's not that fast. No, he is fast. It's just that like a Willis McGahee, a lot of people would think when McGahee was healthy in college, they would say he's not that fast. Look at him; it's an effortless gait. When I watch Gurley, I see an effortless gait, like I saw with Willis McGahee pre-injury, and like we saw with Adrian Peterson at Oklahoma. You just knew this kid was making it look easy. So a large man that's that swift and able to eat up chunks of yards quickly, that's what reminds me the most. Now, is he as fast downfield as Peterson? Probably not. But, we'll see the measurables be able to match up there. But just based on film, he's as swift as Peterson, but as far as maybe downfield speed, that's where he would lack what Peterson has.
Yeah, I don't think he's as powerful as Peterson, and I don't think he's as agile as Peterson. I think that he has some agility. He certainly has power. I mean, we see that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Peterson has that.
Rewind that one, Matt. Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to highlight something on that play.
Yeah, and I'll finish this up, and we'll go right to it. But Peterson has that gear or has that mode I've seen in games where the team needs him to break a run. And I'm not talking like get the first down. I'm talking like it's 3rd down and 12, and they're down by 3, and there's 2 minutes left, and the opposition knows they're going to hand the ball to Peterson at Oklahoma. And not only they stack the box, but Peterson runs through them like his life depended on him to get to the end zone. I have not seen that to that level at Gurley, but I don't think I've ever seen that to that level of any back before.
Now, on that play specifically, you bring up the power, and it takes 3 guys to bring him down. Watch when he gets the ball, because there's such a thing. He stumbles right there, right? So he's a little off balance, but he's still able to pick up 1, 2, about 3 more yards on a contact play where he stumbled. A lot of people will see a big back, and they'll say power back. They did that with Jeremy Hill this year. And, of course, I was a fan of Jeremy Hill at LSU, and we know they get a certain style of running back. But what you see on that play with Gurley is that he has instant power. A lot of guys have build-up power. So when we're talking 10 yards into the carry, are they tough to bring down? Yes. That's not power, okay? That's a big man building momentum. That's not power, okay? It's not Earl Campbell.
Right.
And no, Gurley wasn't exactly Earl Campbell on that play, but when you see an off-balance runner and 3 guys have to bring down an off-balance guy, and he picks up 3 yards after initial contact, that shows you true power, and that's why he is a power back, not a. I always talk about space runners and build up speed and build up power. A lot of big backs have build up power. They're only good when they get that head of steam. Gurley's powerful like that.
Absolutely. Can you see the screen at this point?
I see you.
Okay, good. Well, then we'll change that and go back to the screen. There we go. I had to occasionally have to reset it to present to everybody. So here we go.
Holds on to the rock, even though the guy's trying to strip it from him.
And you notice, I mean, again, like you said, the common theme. You're looking at multiple players in the box here. Yep.
Maybe 9. You could say it's even 9 in the box.
You've got 9 really in this case. I like this play. It's not a productive play, but this is, again, a good play to show what he's thinking and the maturity that he has as a runner. Because this is clearly a play where you're thinking, I'm going to run off of the inside seals of these blocks, but there are 2 men who basically are going to have the advantage on South Carolina at this stage. There are some backs, kind of like, Darren McFadden was a good example of this, who would try to bounce the play outside, who would try to use his athleticism and speed rather than say, I'm going to take what's in front of me, and even if it's a minor gain, I'm just going to get low, get in, let the play end. It's 2nd and 8, no worse for wear. To me, that's a wise play because he's going to have to do that a fair bit in the NFL.
Well, what did they block it for on that one? I can see you now, Matt, not the screen.
Okay.
But we have to ask, what did they block it for on that play? Because the great ones will get you more than what they blocked it for. And as we see Gurley get the handoff, this is what LaShawn McCoy is not doing this year. Now, he could get away with it in Pitt. He's got great phone booth quicks. But what we see is we see a one-on-one situation, essentially two-on-one, really. A lot of backs would just try to dance and bounce. You don't see that. As soon as he gets the handoff, he goes inside. He goes back, and I love that natural instinct from a runner. You're looking at it, South Carolina gets up, they cheer the play. Like, yeah, we got him. It was a gain of 2. But what the Gurley's intent when he gets the ball, a lot of backs would hesitate, bounce, and try to cut it outside. Gurley does the exact opposite. He says, okay, that seal's out there. I'm just going to run into people. I'm going to push the pile. So essentially they blocked it for nothing, and he got 2.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for. What do they block it for, and what does he get? Because some backs, they block it for 2, and they get 2. But the great ones, like Terrell Davis, Mark Schlereth always told me, if we blocked it for 3, TD would get 5. And that's what Gurley does.
And I would also add that with you have to look at the context of a play. This particular play is a downhill play from the get-go. There are going to be some plays that you look at in football where it's going to be more of a east-west beginning play. Mm-hmm. So if you have an east-west beginning play and you have gap containment by the defenders, you're going to be in a situation where the bouncing from one side to the other, you do that, and it's going to be a riskier play, but you may have to you're forced more to do that than to get downhill in certain situations because of the gaps being covered in the way that the play the design is. This particular play, that's doing it again. We're having a little bit of issues here occasionally with this, so we'll reshare. This particular play is more of a downhill play. If he's bouncing in this particular situation, then it's an egregious conceptual error. And you do see that a lot in college football, though. And that's why a guy like C.J. Spiller had issues earlier on in his career, because he would bounce downhill plays outside in ways that you may only see or be allowable in a more lateral beginning.
Yeah, and we see that with Jamal Charles. We talked about his rookie season, bouncing everything outside. It's a discipline to being a pro running back compared to when you can out-athlete everybody in college. And that's essentially what it comes down to. I'm just out-athleting the rest of the guys. You can't do that in the pros.
No, not at all. And it's also why a guy like Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, who is not nearly the athlete of a Lawrence Maroney, has a better career.
Right.
Has a career, because it is about maturity and understanding of the position. And that's why a guy like Darren Sproles is actually more effective in certain cases this year than McCoy, because he does get downhill, and he's not worried, he's not trying to dance and do some of the things that McCoy and Jamal Charles may be the two backs who can do that the most often and get away with it and do it very well in the NFL. But right now, the blocking scheme isn't really allowing that. The performance of the blocks aren't allowing that. I also like this play because it shows a little bit of, you're going to see a little bit of versatility in terms of how he uses his hands. He's not just trying to catch the ball one way. He's using the technique that's important to the position of the ball and the position of the target.
And he gets his head around quickly without dropping them. A lot of people would drop that pass based on that rusher that came through, that concentration. And he's able to secure the pass, turn his head quickly, and get upfield. A lot of guys would drop that because they're thinking about where's the contact coming from. Gurley doesn't worry about that.
Yep. And even if you see, and oftentimes this is one thing I look at, and I wonder if you have the same question or same mentality with it, because oftentimes when I look at rookies transitioning to the NFL, I look at a play like this and go, I won't be the least bit surprised if on his first 2 to 3 games, I'll put it back on here, first 2 to 3 games, you'll see a play where Gurley drops this. Not because he couldn't do it before, but because the emotion of the game. It's an exciting, this is his first game. This is his first opportunity. He knows this is going to be a big hole or a big opportunity for him to make a play. You're going to see some mental errors. And occasionally, when you see mental errors like this, people will overreact and go, oh, he can't catch the football. Oh, he needs to do this better. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's true, but it's his first game. You remember your first day on a job that was like a big job and you're trying to prove yourself. you know, and you messed up because that's going to happen. So if it continues to happen on a every time he catches the ball or gets a target, that's an issue. But if it happens once or twice during his rookie year, you have to have some perspective about it. Now here's a buzzsaw of a run,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go back
We
and
got a lot
watch
to
a
say
little bit of
about
that.
this one.
Yeah, this is a fun run.
Look at 10 seal the backside. It's like that's how dangerous this power back is that South Carolina would know to have their linebackers seal the backside. He does a good job,
Yeah,
but Gurley's going one direction right there.
and you got a nice double team with a fullback lead here that opens a nice crease, but still you have this outside pursuit coming, and he beats that outside pursuit.
He
I mean, it's
beats
a
the
nice
guy that has the
burst.
angle.
Yeah, and nice little straight arm here.
That's awesome.
And look at his knees and feet as he negotiates this crease from the outside man to this man coming over top. That's some fluid running right there.
Well, he changes. We go back to the jazz thing, the scat thing. He changes his foot frequency. Right there, it's a longer stride. Then he gets into contact. He gets low. He beats that guy. Look at the foot frequency now. It's
Yep.
shorter steps. And he
Yep.
kind of like almost hops in a way,
And,
to
and
get by
look
that
at and look at the pivot of the hips too, because the fact that he can move his hips this way to negotiate this angle and still stay downhill and keep his feet under him. It's the foot frequency is a great point. Oh, here we go again. I don't know what's going on this morning with our particular
That's because
session.
Gurley's too good.
I
He's too
think he
good.
is. I think he is. I think there's a conspiracy. So, the pad level running through that.
How many guys
And
would have the same stride, the same note? And not a lot of guys could do that. We're talking about a big back that's doing this.
yeah,
There's
I
a
mean,
lot of backs that would just have the same long stride, and they would have been tackled. Not even by that. They wouldn't even have gotten to that guy
yeah.
because of the same long stride.
And look at this angle. I mean, look at where he's bent. This isn't like the Heisman pose. This is like a yoga pose almost at this stage of what he's got going on here, because
Yeah.
he's literally got his both shoulders over the left leg at this stage while he's running downhill. And the flexibility to do that cannot be underestimated at this point.
And the flexibility to get back into his run. Look at the gait now. The gait is longer. He's eating up those chunks of yards. And it's the guys with the long gait. I brought up McGay here earlier. It's those backs that people say, oh, he's not running fast because the stride is so long. Well, yeah, he is running fast because that stride is eating up chunks quickly.
Yeah, Eddie George was the same way.
Exactly. Yep.
Got another nice 8-man box here, really 9 if you look at this safety over top. Now we got a couple more backs in the Georgia on the Georgia conveyor belt that will be fun to watch over the next few years.
They always do, don't they?
Yeah, Keith Marshall, and then a guy by the name of Nick Chubb. You're gonna like Nick Chubb if you haven't seen him yet.
4th and 1, 9 in the box. Defense knows he's getting it, and that's a sign right there. I love that intent. We're running the ball. We're running the ball, and you can't stop it.
And here's a fun sign of when you know a guy has low pad level and he hits a hole hard. You're going to see him squirt out the backside here, like basically a champagne cork popping out of a bottle. Because you're going to see him hit the crease and disappear. Up. And that's me as the champagne cork. There we go. Let's go back. There we go. Pop. Disappears. And then watch his helmet about where my cursor shows up here. It just pops right out of that, and that's after the initial contact. And then to watch him drag these guys another 3 yards. And yes, there's a push from 54, and you got a push from 47 here, but you also had 3 guys wrapped around him. The fact that he's staying upright and being able to drive his legs is still a good sign of strength.
Defense expecting the run. Power formation to the left. And that's just straight ahead football, man.
Yeah, easy peasy. And it's again the cutback lane here. He gets that backside cut. He knows once he sees that backside cut, that's where he's heading. And he's like, I'm not worried about these two guys at the goal line. I'm going to split them.
And you see him get low. He'll get the ball and he gets low, anticipating contact, and then he gets even lower as he gets through the end zone.
And there's
And
that
there's
other
that
run.
big play.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful, man. The change in stride, the ability to improvise, the ability to twist and turn, carry defenders. It's amazing.
Yeah. And and here comes the touchdown again. Or no,
That's the fourth and
that's the
one.
4th and 1. Yep. I see a number of players in his style. I just don't know if, I mean, it's like I see the differences. Like when I look at Peterson, I definitely, like I said, I see a little bit more lightning quick suddenness in terms of ability to change direction, but they both have the similar flexibility. Eddie George had that flexibility. Eddie George was more of a guy who also could change direction like Gurley here, but also be powerful. I kind of see a little bit Eddie George in him. Um, and at the low end, like if Gurley if Gurley fails, and I don't know if I would say fail, but oops, here we go again. If Gurley if Gurley has isn't as good as we think he is, I would say that he's probably a little bit more Cedric Benson like. And Cedric Benson was not a bad back in the NFL. He just was disappointing compared to what some people thought he might be. But
Right.
look at this. Again, squares the man. Now you're looking at this stage. This is an odd play. Normally you want the guy to try and work outside of you, but because of the nature of this play action and this play action exchange with where he's at, he sets up a little bit more where the man's coming inside. But I still like how he moves his feet enough to stay with the man's inside shoulder and give his quarterback some time to avoid, even though the quarterback still gets sacked. You're seeing the beginnings of some effort here and what you want to see with a stand-up blocker.
On that play, I liked how he faked to the inside. There's a lot of subtle things with shoulders that you look for. And watch where his fullback is, but watch where he puts his shoulder. He gives him, it's almost a dead leg, is what I call it, but
Hmm.
he's using primarily his shoulder to tell those linebackers and safeties at the second level, like, I could be cutting inside, and then he cuts outside. So that's a nice subtlety there from Gurley.
Yeah, it sure is. And this is where the flexibility, I think this is a very good play that highlights a difference in flexibility between a Peterson and even a Melvin Gordon. Now, I'm not saying Gordon is better. I'm saying he's different. And I like Josh Norris's where a guy wins type of line here.
Right.
And what you're going to see is we saw evidence of flexibility with Gurley, but the level of his flexibility, this is the limit right here. Because with certain backs, you're going to see them be able to slide outside through this crease, and it's a tight turn here. It's actually a difficult adjustment to make, whereas he's not able to quite do it. He's going to bounce off his man here. He's not able to adjust and get around it in the way that maybe somebody else would. But even if he did get around it, what you're going to wind up with, even if he did get around it, he was still going to end up hitting a backside defender who comes up on this play. I mean, this man here is going to come off of his block and turn around. Even if he got around it, he's going to run into this man. But
Yeah.
still, from a flexibility standpoint, what you see, that's the limits of it. You're going to say he's very good, maybe even and capable of high-end elite production. But if we're talking about all-time greatness, um, there are other things that maybe he does that would put him into a category where you'd say he's special, but that won't be one of them. You'll say, it's good but not great. And this speed. I mean, again, the fact that you're this big and you can reverse field like this against South Carolina's defense.
And watch this move here. With a long gate, he's still able to do a subtle move to make that guy move. The reason why I look and largely is against a large gate for certain backs is because they're so easy to tackle. Because you can't, when your strides are that long, you can't change direction. That's why we look for foot frequency, because that shows better balance. You can cut quicker. You can make better decisions. He makes a guy miss, and he does it. He doesn't slow down. He still has the long gate, but he does this subtle move about right here to make that guy miss,
Yep.
so that he can get the first down. A lot of guys would be easily brought down by 12 right there, and,
Yep.
and a lot of backs couldn't even do this. But that shows, again, when you're able to make subtle moves with a long gait, because he has to, he couldn't change his stride here, to be able to make that type of move at that speed and momentum for a large player, I think we should just start calling him down dog.
And here's the thing.
Flexibility.
Here's the thing about a player is that, I think vision and feet are integrated with really good backs, because really it's what you see, how you process what you see, and whether or not you have the coordination to react with your feet. And you're going to see this from the get-go. Oops. Here we go. I'm going to show this to you right here. Before he even changes the stride, the foot frequency, you're going to see him make a plant to get downhill. And when you see that plant, you're going to see what he's looking at. Plant. That plant to get downhill. What he's looking at is this man. He's already gauged the angle of where he needs to go.
Yep.
And then he follows that up with that short step there, short step here, makes that man miss. He saw that. He saw that way, at least 4 steps before he made the adjustment. He's seen it here. Plant step there to set up the downhill.
Let's keep it stopped right there, Matt.
Yeah.
We always talk about pressing the hole. There may be some viewers or listeners out there that don't know what we mean by pressing the hole. He pressed the hole there because usually you talk about it with blockers, okay? You're pressing the hole. He made the outside guy think, I could still go outside before planting and making that commit. So he pressed the edge, if you will. He pressed it, making it seem like I could still bounce it outside the number right there, the 30-yard line, before he planted and cut back in. So again, natural instincts and understanding angles. That outside guy can do one of two things. He pressed it outside enough to buy him enough of a crease to pick up the first down inside.
That's a great point. Absolutely. It's funny, Ryan Riddle and I were talking about the same thing with Shaq Thompson, the linebacker, defensive back / running back at Washington, on an interception return, showing how he pressed that hole up the sideline on a play in the open field. Not many steps either. You notice that for a big back to change direction, he's not throttling down an awful lot here.
No.
I mean, this one...
And he's not flat-footed either. A lot of guys would be flat-footed, almost come to a complete stop before they do something like that.
Yeah, he's on his toes. And then you see that. You see what you're talking about from this angle a little bit better.
And then he presses that guy, that outside guy on coming in. He presses it, plants, and gets the first.
All right, Google, we know that you don't like Todd Gurley. Let's see, here we go. They want to be the only G, I think. That's what it is.
There it is.
Yeah. Now I got a little bit.
Interesting, he dove at him. He'll give an A for effort there.
Yeah. I think that he probably... I bet he was a little afraid he wasn't going to reach the man and needed to try and free up this pass lane if it's a quick pass, and it was.
Well, and also you want to chop in that situation, because if you straight up block him, he can do the J.J. Watt and put his hand up.
Absolutely.
And that blocks that passing lane. So a chop is really what you want to do there.
And I think he had to dive as far as he did because of the distance between him and this man working outside. He had to do it fast, and so it was one of those situations where if you're commenting on the lack of technique, you're probably not looking at the context of the play very well. Um, because again, quick pass needs to be a quick lane. Maybe he could have gone outside a little bit further, but if you go outside further, then you're inviting this man inside, and you don't want to do that. You
Right.
always want to shield the man outside the pocket. So, and he slips a little bit, but that's he forces that defender outside,
And he
and
keeps that lane clean, that passing lane clean.
and that's exactly the point. That's the objective of this play, is to open the passing lane, not to block the man, but to open the passing lane. If you block the man, that's great, but the first and foremost, and it's a nice throw too, nice placement of the ball on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to live 5 miles from the stadium, and I work about 2 blocks. I don't know if it's even 2 blocks. It's a pretty little stadium here. And it really ain't so little. Another example of that.
Yeah. Another example, keeping the lane clean.
Yeah.
2-point conversion.
And for a big back who's willing to, who has the agility and willingness to dive like that, that's also a very good sign. So what are some things that you are seeing in this game that you would like, that maybe, or things that you haven't seen in this game that you would like to see from him?
That I would like to see from him?
Yeah, things that you haven't seen from him yet because of what's going on in this particular game.
Well, he's broken off big runs. He's gotten the most out of plays that weren't blocked well. He's caught well out of the backfield. He's pass blocked in multiple different ways. He's had good technique. He's reversed his field. I mean, honestly, what hasn't he shown in this one game? He's punched it up inside. He's kept his legs driving after contact. We talk about the yoga moves that he's got. So really, I mean, this again in one game here, we've been talking for about an hour. In 8 minutes of film, we've been able to show you in multiple different ways how this guy does everything.
Yeah, there are a few things I would probably still want to see, and it's not going to be integral to whether he can be successful in the NFL. I think he's going to be successful in the NFL. I don't think that's an issue, but how good he is. I want to see how he handles smaller, tighter creases. I didn't see a lot of tight creases in this game that were NFL-sized creases. I want to see if that makes a difference in how he manages what he does. So that's going to be one thing that I'm going to be looking for, is maybe some evidence of how he's able to negotiate and set up those types of creases. This is a good play, because this is the type of thing I wanted to see right here, is more work, more penetration in the backfield, and how he handles it, especially situations like this, getting hit from an indirect angle right onto that thigh pad and being able to stay upright. So let's go.
He does that more than once on that play where he keeps his feet moving upon contact.
Yeah.
It just shows how he's slithery. Some backs are slashers, some backs are slithery. He's got slithery ability without being, the quickest back out there. He doesn't do it with quickness. He does it with body angle.
Yeah. And this is an example, too, of look how he moved that leg away. You got the arm here to brace where that's going, but the leg isn't going straight. It's not straight, or else the helmet would probably be right next to his knee at this point. But the knee actually, the whole leg swings around a little bit, which is, again, you're seeing a player who has a good understanding of angles and good coordination to avoid it. See how, again, that's about the hips. Good fluid hip movement and flexibility. It also allows him to minimize the contact but still have the balance to bounce off of it.
right there you're thinking play's done, right?
Yeah.
As soon as he goes flat-footed, you're thinking play's done. Right here you think, okay, 1 yard gain. I mean, multiple times, right there, flat-footed, 2 guys on him. He busts outside. Guy's got a hold of his jersey. You're thinking 1 yard gain. Nope. He keeps his feet, puts his hand down. That's like an 8 yard gain. That's a 9 yard gain
We can.
from
Yeah.
nothing. From
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
From nothing.
Yeah. In the fourth quarter, on a 2nd and 10, and this is all him creating at this stage, because
Yep.
at this point, this is all you. One tackle, and then wins a second angle with a stop-start move. I mean, a big guy in the backfield. Wow. 2, 3, 4,
4,
5,
5, 6.
6.
Finally
Yeah.
7. Seventh guy brings him down.
Yeah. Ball under the left arm. This is another thing that I really like about Gurley that we're going to see in this close-up here. He got hit. He's getting hit a fair bit on that ball-carrying arm.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're going to look at this, and there are going to be some plays in the NFL where he's going to fumble the ball because of this second effort, just like Adrian Peterson did, and it's going to get punched loose. Look how tight, for the most part, that ball is still fairly tight, and he does a good job of, when he feels contact on that backside, cinching the ball in. You're going to see it again here, because at first it's cinched in pretty tight. When you have to make this type of a move, generally I see running backs holding the ball where the elbow is much further out, and you don't see the ball up against the side even. The fact that he's even doing that is pretty darn good. And even when he has to bring it away, it's still high. Cinched it, he's going to cinch it back in. It's a little bit off still, but watch what happens when he feels the jersey on the backside cinched in tight. And he's anticipating this hit from the front side too. Overall, I'm really, to me it's a minor thing in the sense that the superhuman effort that he's displaying, you're going to see the ball come out, but the fact that he still has the wherewithal to be thinking about security at different points of this run is also a very good sign.
And he's doing it naturally. A lot of backs, again, processor. How many things can you do at the same time? He can secure the ball. He can do these yoga moves. He can put his hand down. He can run with power. He can change his gait. I mean, all these things. That's why we talk about running in tighter creases. With his determination, his balance, and the fact that he can run through those arm tackles, the tighter creases, I don't believe will be a problem for him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that, and I think that there's oftentimes you're going to have to project where you won't see those tighter creases. So, if I were going to project without it, I would agree with you. But if I have the luxury to be able to see how he makes decisions, with that, it's something that we're all going to look for. So, and there we go. So that was our first game with Gurley here. And basically, I don't know. What do you got with time? You think should we cut it off here and we'll watch some more at a different date?
Here's what I want to do. And we don't have to do every game, but
Okay.
I want to do like a series of Todd Gurley. in going through his entire catalog, because he's going pro, okay?
Right.
I think we should go through, pick some bad games, pick some good games. This is like the kickoff series. But we could do easily and learn so much for 3 or 4 games of Gurley.
Sure.
So I think a series of Gurley might be in order, because Gurley, there's players to look at and there's players to discuss, and then there's players to really pin down. And the greatness that we see here, I mean, this one game showed so much for people out there.
Well, I think that certainly what we can do is I'll invite you back on, and I think that what we can do is we can watch one of Gurley and watch one of another player, and maybe over the course between now and the draft, we can do a few, and we'll just have a standing reservation in the film room for Mr. Cecil Lammey and Todd Gurley, and so we can revisit Gurley and see some of the stuff there, and as I make my way through more and Cecil makes his way through more, when we notice some moments that we feel like would be fun to watch, we can either focus on a player and then go, okay, here's 4 or 5 plays from Todd Gurley, or here's a dozen that I really want to show, and we'll write down the times and kind of and go through them and talk about what we saw to revisit that. How does that sound to you?
I think that sounds fantastic, and I hate to cramp your schedule, but this is so fun. We could do it every single day,
Yeah,
every
I,
day.
I love
Certainly in the draft season.
I love this, and this is and I think that this is the folks that have been on have kind of had the same feeling. It's like I could do this forever, you know. So I know that when you find, you know, you've got the right guests, when they're like, when I'm always trying to be considerate of their time, and I go, you know, is this a good stopping point? And they almost look disappointed, like I'm trying to say, you know, it's time to go. That's not what I mean. I'm just thinking, you know, I'm like that, you know, it's like that guy who you're sharing your collection of something, and you know, like when you were kids, you know, and you say, yeah, you want to go back into my bedroom and we're going to take a look at like the baseball card collection, or, you know, or my collection of comic books, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, this person's going to think that I'm crazy with all this stuff, and then you're like, yeah, do you want to go? And they're like, no.
Well, are you into what I'm into? That's what it comes down to. And do you share that same passion and the enthusiasm? And something like this is such a treat to be able to talk about with you. Now, for the viewing audience, like, we get to do this in person sometimes, and
Yeah.
you bring your stack of DVDs wherever we're at, and even on the road or at All-Star games. So we've been able to do this before, but to be able to do it in a way that people can watch and hear us talk about it, I think is really fun.
Yeah, and so this is going to be the type of thing that I'm going to be doing pretty much every week, until I decide someday I'm not going to do the RSP anymore for whatever reason that would be. So you know, it's only going to get better, and it's going to be great to have, you know, Cecil on a regular basis doing this, and so this was a lot of fun. You know, any closing statements about Gurley that you would like to remark on, anything you see that you hadn't seen before?
You know, and I remember this game. This is something with Gurley that just slowing down and highlighting the subtlety of what he does. That's really the art of it. It is art when running the ball. The subtlety of his shoulder dip or putting the hand down, the able to twist and stiff arm a guy, change his feet in terms of his gait. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to slow it down and really take that clean look at it. And my closing statement is, I want his autograph.
There you go. Well, I would say if I ran into him downtown, I would ask, except I think that maybe this might not be the right time.
That's for a later date.
That's for a later date. But I agree. I mean, I think the flexibility was the big thing that I saw with this particular game. And I also was impressed with his just overall balance and ability to spot things ahead of time at a level that I wasn't quite sure he had all the time. I saw a lot of fluidity in certain games, in his sophomore tape. I guess that's what it was, because he's a junior or a senior. What is he anyway? I forget. Was he a junior?
He's a junior, isn't he?
He is a junior. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. In his sophomore tape, I saw the ability to really handle things as they come in succession and show that type of power that you liked. But to be able to really look 2 to 3 steps ahead, I see that evidence of that. I think you highlighted that well, also, Cecil, and you know, I think that he fits in pretty much any system that you're looking for, and it's just going to be a matter of really who is fortunate enough to grab him. And as long as there's no where there's smoke, there's fire type of stuff in terms of his character, he should end up being a first-round pick. So that's where we're at. I really, want to thank Cecil again for his time. And this was the RSP Film Room, and we are out of here.